Okay, yeah, so today I just want to say thanks, JP, for this suggestion, because this was from you. So finding your purpose and what does it mean? I really, really like this subject because I struggle with this, if I'm honest with you. I have felt moments of feeling lost. But yeah, before we move on, let's quickly introduce ourselves. I know most of you know each other. Joe, do you want to give us like a little intro into your background, your spiritual awakening, or anything that you want to share?
Okay, so my name is Josephine. I'm Colombian. I'm 33. I've kind of been on my journey for quite some time, but to be honest with you, this quarantine has probably saved me mentally. And that's something that I've been speaking to Alex about throughout this couple of weeks, where I spent a lot of years kind of feeling lost, really, and not really knowing what I wanted to do, or going through depression and everything. And I feel that this quarantine has opened up a side of me that I probably would never have looked at if I wasn't here on my own and had to really kind of look at myself. So it's actually been really good.
Thanks, Joe. Does anyone else want to just give like a little brief background? I know like most of us know each other, but just so Joe gets a feel. Christo, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
I lost you guys. Oh, you can hear me, okay. Hi, Justin. My journey, I suppose all our journeys start when we're born. When I was young, I used to have, or at least I used to see what I would call spirits back then, or entities, but I kind of lost that as I grew up, and I was programmed by my parents and the media and everything. And then I had a near-death experience when I was 19, and it kind of reopened the gateway, as it were. And since then, I've just been sort of on a mission to share everything that's been kind of shared with me, so that I can help other people grow out of their misery and their pain. And I've been helping a lot of people actually find their purpose and become like more fulfilled in being their authentic selves. So yeah, that's what I am. That's what I'm all about.
Thanks, Christo. And he's from Dublin as well. JP?
Yep. So hi. Yeah, well, you guys know me, except for Josephine, I think. So yeah, JP. I'm from the Seychelles. Lived in Australia and now in Ireland. Moving to Italy.
Wow.
My journey started. So initiated in 2012, but it went deep in 2013 when I lost my mum. So. I lost my mum. Well, my mum left the physical form unexpectedly. I was in Australia. She was in the Seychelles. And there were things that I experienced in Australia, like the smell of what happened. And it was about 2 days before I found out what happened. And then when I went to the Seychelles, I recognized exactly the same smell in her house. And, this is something that science couldn't really explain to me. And, people said that I was, he was all in my head. I was making things up. And this is when my spiritual journey really, I guess the inquiry really started. And yeah, so then that's how I've it's been up and down. And yeah, and then I met my partner in Australia. We moved to Ireland. And now we have a plan. So we are building a retreat in the mountains of Reggio Calabria in Italy, which is almost done. And the plan is hopefully by this time next year, we can move there and we can all collaborate and have amazing projects together.
That sounds amazing.
I was just going to say, that sounds absolutely amazing.
Heaven.
So that's the plan. Yeah. And I will teach you guys how to do that, once we've moved with you don't even need that much money. Like we've been programmed to think, to be sustainable, to be living off grid, we need all these savings. This is not true at all.
Yeah, JP's going to do a workshop on that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely look forward to that.
Yeah.
Livia, do you want to give us a quick intro?
Yeah, I'm Livia. I guess, well, kind of like what Christo said, our journey begins when we're born, but I was kind of raised to be spiritual, to be, that type of thing. But similar to JP, my journey really started after my dad died. And he was communicating to me from the other side or the next level up or whatever. And I really, really started believing that there is more to life than what people say. There's more purpose than what you think. And I pretty much just kind of live by that. I just go day to day. I try not to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow or anything like that. I try to help people. People see what, like if they're having trouble in life, I kind of help guide. I find that I'm drawn to help guide people to where they need to be. I guess that could be what my purpose in life would be to teach and to help guide people.
Amazing.
Oh, and I live in America, by the way.
Thank you, Livia. Thanks for being here as well again. Okay, so moving on. So what does it mean to find your purpose? Is purpose the reason behind our... Oh, someone's coming in. Sorry. Just letting Yasmin in. JP, you know Yasmin, don't you?
I do, yeah. Well, I've seen her online.
So is purpose the reason behind our being present on this earth during this time, or can we choose whilst we are here? As in, can we choose our purpose whilst we are here? What does it all mean, guys? Because I feel lost quite often. What are your thoughts, Christo? How do you feel about purpose? What does it mean to you?
I feel like purpose, and what does it mean to me? Well, it means understanding at least part of the reason of why you're here. So as soon as we find our sort of big why, our big underlying why of why we're here, which tends to fall under the umbrella of some kind of service, basically. As I think Muhammad Ali once said, service is the rent that you pay for your room here on earth.
Yeah, I like that.
For me, purpose is something you feel. It's not something you think. It's not something that you will come to the conclusion of after much time thinking. It's something that you just feel. It comes from the right hemisphere. It comes from within. And sometimes the reason why we kind of lack purpose is because we get so lost in the left hemisphere, being analytical, thinking about what our purpose is, that we don't actually allow for our purpose to reveal itself, because it's always there. And so somebody told me, actually a guy I used to do a podcast with at one of the universities here in Dublin, really great guy. I need to invite him onto one of these calls because you'll all love him. But he shared with me a story. He said, imagine that it's like a rider and the elephant story, right? So you tell an elephant to go one direction, or the elephant's just going to choose a direction and it's going to go to a certain destination, right? And it's going to go at its own pace. However, your ego is like the rider. So along the way, your ego is going to see many different directions and many different things. It might even become patient and want to get to the destination sooner. But nothing's going to speed up the elephant. The elephant's going to continue going. And you can either resist and cause yourself pain and maybe fall off the elephant, or you can just relax, let go of analyzing, and let the elephant take you to where you were always going to end up anyway. And for me, that's all. Did you guys get that all right, or did I cut out?
We did, but I can't hear Alex.
Sorry, I was on mute again.
No.
Sorry. Oh, Christo, that was amazing. Thank you. Sorry, I was like talking. Sorry. Yeah, that was really, really insightful. I really appreciate that. I heard everything that you said as well, Christo, and I like the way you put it. JP, did you want to add to that?
Yeah. Maybe there's two things, like I'll just a little story now. I think this will sort of wrap, like it will sort of, I guess, give everything, like put my thoughts into perspective in a way. So first of all, just a little story about a lot of the tribes in Africa. So especially like in the Seychelles, like my grandparents, like my grandparents come from Kenya. And from Kenya, so they migrated from Nigeria, which is from Egypt. But in the Maasai tribe in Kenya, and also in a lot of tribes in West Africa, like purpose is, so for example, because it's all community based, and some people in the Seychelles, they still, on some of the islands, they actually still practice this. So, when, first of all, to have a sexual interaction with someone, it's very sacred. So like it's not done for pleasure, I guess, as we do in the West. So like there has to be a purpose for you to be having a sexual experience with another person. So purpose itself starts in the process of creation. And in the community you marry to someone, then for example, let's say someone passes away. So then there's a committee, they meet and they say, okay, well, so-and-so has passed away, so we need something else in the community. So then you would approach a couple and they would have a sexual experience and they create, and even through that process of the sexual experience, there's a lot of manifestation and visualization for you to create what the community needs. So, and then the baby is conceived. So interestingly enough, so then when the baby is in the mom's belly, so the mom will go to a shaman, and then the mom is put into a trance, and then the shaman will speak to the baby. So the mom is sleeping, but the baby come through, and the baby will speak, and then the shaman will ask the baby, so who are you coming as from the spirit world? Because if you think of birth, so when the baby is in the mom's belly, so this is actually the passage between the spirit world and the physical. So this is the center, this is the place. So you can actually connect to the spirit world through the baby if you can actually communicate with the baby. So the shaman will ask the baby, so who are you coming as? What is your purpose? What is missing that you bring into the community? And the baby will communicate. And all this is noted. And then when the baby is born, the baby is actually mentored and coached to live that purpose. So the baby would say whatever it needs to say, like whether it is, to bring some information to the West or whatever. But the interesting thing is, so with the purpose that the baby communicates, an African name is given to the baby, but it's more in the sound of the name that resonates the purpose. So, whatever the name is, so the baby is given that name, and then the baby is coached to live the purpose. So, and that's how, I guess, in the African community, so when you see people, they are so happy because they are living the purpose, because they were born, and they were born into the purpose, and they are coached in their daily lives to live that purpose. So that's one way, I guess, of looking at it. But for me, I didn't go through all that process, even if I guess my grandma, like my grandma, she knew about this. But my grandma, she used to tell me that she would speak to me when I was a child to try and get information from the spirit world, like to try and see, like what. And something that I would always tell her, even if I was a child, like she said, I would always say that I've come back to help people die. And that never made sense to me until very recently, like even, for example, listening to Ram Dass, which it actually makes sense for everyone. We are born to prepare for death. But I'm still trying to work out how this fits into everything that I'm doing. I don't know, I think it will come to me.
I love that story.
Yeah, but I think with purpose, I think it's a little, like it's a lot like Krista was saying, so it's more of, I guess being on the elephant, and so the elephant guides the way, which I would see the elephant as the heart. So if you can connect to your heart, and you know that you are everything that is, so your purpose comes to you into the heart, And then as that happens, then you will attract the circumstances that you need. It will come naturally for you to basically live the purpose. But I think we should just stop thinking. Like, I don't think we should be thinking too much about what my purpose is. What we should be doing is living in the heart and trust. So as you live in your heart and you trust, you will live your purpose. It will naturally come. So that's my story.
Thank you, JP. That is amazing. That actually reminds me of a story of my friend. When she was pregnant, she was actually meditating, trying to connect to her child while her baby was still inside her, because she wanted her child to let her know what her name was. Rather than her choosing a name for her child, she was just like trying to get to know her before she came into this world. And she actually named her the name that came to her during the meditation. So I just love that story. I feel like it would be so much easier, wouldn't it, if I had that actually. If I had an elder that had actually told me and trained me to live my purpose, that would have been so much easier.
Yeah. So I think that's why we see in the African communities, they just live so, like we actually look at them, they are poor, and we look at them with a sense of pity. But it's the other way around. They actually sometimes look at people from the West as a sense of, look at you guys, you're so lost.
Yes. And I do feel lost sometimes, which is what kind of, brings me on to the next slide. But anyway, Joe, how do you feel about purpose?
Well, purpose, I feel like what I was saying to you earlier this week, I feel like purpose means just so many different things for each individual. And I think for me, I've always wanted to help people. That's something that I know I've always wanted to do. And I've always thought that it was more of a physical thing, being there for someone or listening to someone. And throughout this time, I felt that I've come to the point where I want to actually inspire people, where whatever I'm doing, inspire someone to do something themselves, whether it be look inside themselves or look at something, research something completely different. I don't know, that's how I feel about purpose. I can't think of just one particular thing that is purpose. I don't think.
No, but it just comes naturally to you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. Thank you, Joe. Yasmin, how are you?
Hi, it's nice to be here. Sorry, I'm so awkward when I first start calls. I'm just like, do I say hi or do I just sit here? So, anyway, thank you guys for sharing your stories. It's really interesting because it's making me think that aside just from what I conceptualize around purpose, there's been a little bit of attachment now to place, to position. So when you're within a community and you know your role and you know what you're doing, you're describing factors, and this relates to personality and a few other things I'm going to mention. When you know those factors, then you can work with what actually your skills are and who you really are. So I really love that story of like connecting and channeling through what you've actually come with. So the way that I see purpose is not what we're going to think about and try to figure out, even though that's what our minds want to do. It is something we carry. It is our codes. It's in our DNA. It's things we used to do when we were kids. So I've done a process like my whole life, and now I help people through it to basically map out so many different things about what you love and fear, lots of different personality and modality tests and things like that, to get more of a holistic picture, since we weren't really coached by the elders or any of that stuff in a lot of our societies, to kind of get more of a picture on what's your energy field. So whether that's human design or numerology or astrology, to kind of piece it together a little bit for yourself. But then you can go back to your childhood where you weren't thinking about it. What would you do then? What gave you the most joy? What would you do mindlessly and from your heart? And I think you can find a lot of the answers about who you really are and what you naturally have an affinity for. Because we have a tendency to think it's something intellectual, but just because I can do something, therefore I should. And we slot people in based on these like achievement things. But it's definitely something unique and you're going to feel it. So even if we can't, I don't know, that's what I felt. Because for many years I used to try to prematurely access my purpose. but all I was receiving was tidbits, these little breadcrumbs. And at a certain point, you get a bigger picture, and then you're more ready to move into where you are. So yeah, it would just be go with what you're feeling because you already carried it.
I can so relate to that. Thank you, Yasmin. Nail on the head for me. Livia, did you wanna add to that?
Actually, yeah. Because I'm not entirely sure even what my purpose would be. Listening to all of your stories and stuff reminded me a lot of my dad, actually, and just from experiences of what I've witnessed with him, he was always trying to help people and to just give them really good information. And he always talked a lot about spirituality and, you know, how when we die, we just are leaving our, you know, our physical bodies to move on to the next step. And this got me thinking, you know, I had a dream before I had my son about my dad holding a little kid. And after I had my son, of course, like 2 years later, it looked exactly like that child. And my husband and I went to a, I don't want to call her a, she did like a reading, a tarot reading. I don't want to call her the normal, what they're called, because she works with energies and beings and light beings.
Yeah.
And I told her I wanted to communicate with my dad. And she was saying that when she was trying to communicate, that there were like things blocking her from him. And she's like, is it a woman you're looking for? I'm like, no. She goes, okay, I have to go higher. She had to go higher up through the light being. She said that she finally found him at where there would be ascended masters. Like he had ascended so far to fulfill his purpose. His purpose was he always wanted to be everywhere at once, to help everyone all at once. And by doing that, he did. And he, being ascended master, can help guide energies to where they need to go for lives. Like babies being born, help guide them to the parents that they should be raised by these energies, that one. And with that dream that I had of him basically holding my child in his garden that he always loved. And then this lady that I was getting the reading from, she goes, he gave you your child. He gave you that energy. That child was directly from him, and there are ties that we have to our source energy. We all have a source energy. My kid has 4 ties. One is straight to the source, one is straight to my dad, and she said the other 2 she had no idea, but they were strong. And she said if you ever need to communicate with the higher light beings, go with him because he knows how to do it. He will have the knowledge of how to do it, and just like it's nothing. And it's just pretty amazing talking about purpose after kind of what I've witnessed. And then the lady said to me, she goes, he tells you you don't need me to communicate. He said, she goes, she said something that he would say, which very much convinced me. She was like, he said, do it yourself, you know how. And that was what he always would say to me. He'd say, do it yourself, you know how to do it. And then just out of curiosity, like a month later, I talked to another tarot reader, and I asked her to do a reading, and she goes, he says he told you to do it yourself. I'm like, damn, okay, I'm just gonna stop now because I know I can do it. But as for purpose, helping people understand that there's more to life than what they think there is, I think is a good purpose, really. But I just thought it was pretty. I just wanted to share that because that just amazed me.
How long ago was that, Livia? That is such a powerful story. That actually gave me goosebumps and just made me beam.
Yeah. It was last summer that I got the reading done.
That is
And
incredible.
she was like getting goosebumps, and we were in a warm room, and she was just like, she's like, all of this is vibrating as truth, like high power. And she was like, she was tired after. She's like, I've never done an energy, like he was putting so much through her to get it out to me, and it was just amazing. And then another thing that was kind of cool was my son was sitting there in the stroller, and this was when he was just learning how to talk, and he kept talking about a doggy, a white doggy, and there was no dog. And she goes, is he talking about a white dog? Because she said she had a what is that, like a spirit guide, animal guide, that was a white dog.
Oh wow.
And I was like, wow. That's pretty amazing.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Livia. That was amazing.
Yeah. Thanks.
So do you feel there are different levels to our purpose? So what's the difference between our heart purpose, our life purpose, our soul purpose? It gets told to us in so many different ways. I was thinking about this the other day because I share a lot to quite a lot of you actually, that I feel lost sometimes. I really feel lost. There's moments I feel like I'm really on the path, and then there's just moments I just feel I don't know what I'm doing. It doesn't feel like I'm on the right path anymore. So where does it, like, why does that happen, you know? And when I was thinking about, well, does your heart have a purpose? You know, like, is your heart after one thing and it ties into your life purpose, why you're here? And I was thinking, is it even something that we need to find? Is purpose something that we even need to find? I know, Yasmin, you touched on that. Do you want to add more into this?
Sure. I think we're going to run into it either way. Like, at some point, you're going to experience certain things that are going to reveal certain things to you. So I like what you said about layers, because that is one of the ways that I view it. That, I mean, aside from the fact that we've got, okay, our core identity and then the energy field out here and the soul, and just keep going with that. Aside from that, those light fields and energy codes and all of that, each one of those things attaches to something. Each one of those things is something that can be tapped into at a certain point. So I feel like when you hit a layer where you get confused and you feel a bit lost, it could be, like I was just talking about this yesterday, it could be a particular zone of illusion in order to illuminate a certain thing. Because if we were 100% of the time exactly in the awareness that we needed to be in, then we wouldn't be having this human experience, because a part of it is that challenge and that struggle to magnetize to what you already are. And something about our souls loves that. It likes this mystery to just hide from itself and then figure it out. And then there's an extra boost that you get out of, I figured it out, but you already knew it, you already have it, and then you figure it out, and then you're somehow even more motivated to do it because you feel like you found it, rather than just coming into this world like, I am all of these roles and that's it. There would almost not be a purpose to that unless that was like teaching somebody else something. But those layers themselves, those codes, at any one point, I think experiences reveal different aspects of those things. So that's where the study of it comes on multiple levels. So for example, with numerology, we've got our life path number, our heart number, our soul number, and each one of those speaks on something. And then if we did palmistry, like you would look at just so many different layers of interpretations, and it's a fractal. It's a, multiverse of all kinds of interpretations. So sometimes you're stuck in one particular room in your psyche, and sometimes you're looking at the whole thing. You don't really determine or control when that is.
Thank you. Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you, Yasmin. Joe, did you want to add on that? Or how do you feel about different levels or different layers of purpose?
To be honest, I'm enjoying everybody else's explanations. They're so enlightening. I feel like I'm still at the beginning of mine, so I don't really feel I have much to contribute right now, to be honest. I'll let someone else take the floor.
Okay, JP?
think I was on mute. Sorry. I actually don't think I can top up what Yasmin has just described. Like it's like I got goosebumps just listening to her speak about like just like just the way she's explained everything is just beautiful. And I think I'm not sure if it's to add, but I think maybe it's from how I say it. I think the heart purpose, the soul purpose. I think the soul is the heart, or the heart is a way to the soul, if you wanna put it this way. And Ram Dass is my best teacher. He still teaches me every day, and like whenever I experience anything, I see Ram Dass giggling in front of me. Like to me, whenever I see whatever I'm experiencing, I think of him as my guru. Like everything, like it's hilarious. And I would remember something that he would say about purpose, and it's almost like I giggle. And you posted something yesterday which is so beautiful, to say, like when you are struggling, just see the person in front of you or the experience in front of you as a tree, and then it just passes. So but something that Ram Dass used to say, it's one of his sayings, is that our purpose is to carry each other home. And I don't think there's something more beautiful than this, because we are living. So life is a preparation of death. And I think our purpose is to accept death. So because once you accept dying, then you leave, then you're not scared to live, and then the purpose comes to you. So then you magnetize what you need, the circumstances that you need to bring into your life to die, and i.e. to live.
Yes. And then to evolve, right, JP? After that.
And then to evolve, absolutely.
On to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, what happens after, so once we've, like, I think sometimes in meditation, we sort of get a glimpse, like of what's behind the veil, and you sort of, you can have a peek, but, like, it's very intriguing, because you're like, I want to get there, like, it's like you just want to die in meditation to get there, because already in meditation, it feels so blissful, and you're like, I want to get there, but you're like, okay, well, it's not my time. I just need to wait. I'll sit on the bench here. I'll just wait, whatever that, whatever the time I need to wait. So
when I experience that, I often feel it brings me right back to enjoying the journey, because I relate to that, JP. I relate to, like, I just want to stay here, but then it makes me, obviously, I accept I'm here as a human. I have to be here, because I'm here. So enjoy the journey, and then that's how it kind of makes me just flow after. But I like that. I like what you shared. Thank you. Livia, did you want to share on this?
I pretty much agree with what JP and Yasmin said. I mean, I can't really top that. As for levels to purpose, there may be different levels to purpose, but they all have to complement each other. Like the heart purpose, the soul purpose, they're there to complement each other and to, raise you up to your final purpose, which, like JP said, is to be comfortable to die, to go to the next level.
Yeah.
So,
thank you. Christo, did you want to share?
I think you guys pretty summed it up there. Yasmin, completely agree with. I don't think it's about finding your purpose necessarily, because it implies that you have to go searching for it, and sometimes it's when you stop searching that it shows up, when you just let it happen. So completely agree. What you all said was really beautiful, and I mean, at least on my own understanding with these different layers, sort of like the way that there's different dimensions. Like we're light beings having a sort of a heavy existence in the human body. So with that in mind, I mean, you could kind of say, well, that's the soul purpose, the light being, that's, the oversoul that's manifested as here. Whilst the heart's purpose, which is the seat of the soul, by the way, the heart's purpose is more related to that to that heaviness, but it's kind of like the gateway between the light and the physical manifest. And then with your life purpose, then that can be more related to that sort of physical manifest. So what are you here to do with your body? You know, what human experiences are you here to feel and go through? And so we do that through, I mean, potentially we do that through exercise, we do it through sexual experiences, we do it through even meditation and exploring that gateway, which is kind of what that sort of experiential purpose is, through the life purpose. But then if we bring in what Yasmin was talking about with regards to the way in numerology, you've got that soul urge number, you've got that heart's desire number, etc., and life path number. At least what I found is that, and everybody has their own. You know, you might have somebody that has been maybe, because I spoke about Muhammad Ali earlier, right? And so from the outside looking in, maybe some people might think, oh, he's just a fighter and it's violence and it's. But at the same time, if it wasn't for that path that he was drawn into because of his skill that he naturally had, he wouldn't have been able to share his own message. And he's touched many hearts around the world. And there's certain people that have that more masculine energy, for example, that maybe need a Muhammad Ali to relate to, so that they can open that doorway to the spirit route, because they might not be able to relate to the more softer type or the more feminine energies, right? And so that was his purpose. I know for me, and it's different for everybody, but it seems that, and even when I took my life path, read my numbers basically, it seemed as though that my heart's desire wanted me to entertain, because I like entertaining and making people laugh, and I like singing and all of that. But then my life path dictated that it seems as though that I was meant to go into some sort of business or exchange or game or something like that. And now it's becoming clear, at least for me, that by converging all of these things, and my purpose has come together, by allowing it to happen rather than resisting it. Because for years I resisted business because I had a bad relationship with money. I thought it was linked to greed and everything like that. So I resisted that. I resisted potentially entertaining people and making videos because of, you know, that sort of thinking, self-image problems, stuff like that. So that'd be my perspective, just to add on top of what I said. But yeah, it's just interesting when you dig deep into the layers of it. But yeah.
Can I add something?
Thank you. I can so relate to everything that you guys said. The deep understanding that I'm starting to cultivate and starting to visualize now is that we have purposes on many different levels, right? So we have our spirit purpose, and we have, I mean, like you said, your heart purpose, right? So yes, it very much ties in to the spirit, but the heart is very much about connecting with people, especially whilst we're here having our human experience. And then we have our life purpose, which are actions that we take, I suppose, that tie in with the entire purpose that we have. And yeah, I loved what you were sharing, Christo. Thank you so much. Thank you, Livia and Yasmin and JP. I really, really appreciate. And Joe, like, honestly, feel free to share, like, whatever you're feeling, you know.
And is it okay if I ask everyone the question? And I'm not sure if the question makes sense in my head, but I'm not sure if it's going to make sense to everyone. And, you know, I'll try to rephrase it, because what I found is for so long is that when I trapped the experience that I'm having as source, as the all, as the oneness, you know, however you want to call it, whenever I trap this into, for example, a job title, I feel that I miss out on everything else. But when I don't give it a name, I attract so much more. Is this, yes, help me with this.
Who wants to add? Who wants to share on this?
I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
So I was also talking about this yesterday, in terms of identification.
Yep.
Because as soon as you put a label on something or box it, you cap what it is. Naming is a very powerful spell. It's almost like you manifest it, you bring it into being with the abilities that it's able to attach to that name. Whereas obviously when we leave the potentials open, so much more of what that thing denotes can come through. But I've also always felt that. It's like once you, I don't know, all of these job descriptions, all of this stuff made me feel so uncomfortable even before I knew that I was more of a multidimensional soul. So I would just be like, see, this doesn't encompass the actual skills that I have. And you guys want to measure me on this one thing, but there's so much more that comes into it. So that's how I feel about that. And I just wanted to add a quick story. Actually, it's really interesting because my father went to something called, I forgot. It's a camp in Spain where they do a language exchange. And they speak only English, so the Spanish participants get to practice for 2 weeks. And he met somebody that actually met Muhammad Ali. And he was a big, big fan of him. And he went and actually got to meet him and was so enamored and went up to him and said, I'm so inspired by what you've done. And so they got to chatting, and it turns out this guy's a teacher. So Muhammad Ali himself actually said, actually, I should be the one that's thanking you and here to observe and learn from you, because what you've done is actually touch children and touch all of their lives. So he figured out with his encounter with him, he was a very humble person, and that actually he took a very practical view of his own life purpose. He was just kind of like, well, I just punch people for a living, I'm good at this is what I do, but you somehow then end up helping other people figure out what to do, which is far more nuanced. And the last thing I want to say is that we can't forget the struggles. So I wanted to kind of ground what we're talking about in terms of ideals and purpose and gifts. It's like you have to get down into the core, which is the programming, which is where the gene keys, for example, when you do a profile, it shows you, right, what was your programming the first 7 years of your life, and then 7 to 14, 14 to 21, and what are your particular struggles, because that's where your purpose is at. The things like you were saying about, the stuff that you resisted and didn't like, and things that you're not good at, or whatever it is, there's usually a purpose in those. I basically figured out the stuff that I suffered from the most is what I ultimately ended up coming through, and then realizing I had a fountain of wisdom about it for other people.
I love that. Thank you. Did anyone else want to share from JP's question? Thank you. So what are your thoughts on soul contracts? So just briefly, for those that may not know, these contracts are agreed with a special purpose, and that is to teach us important lessons we've chosen to learn. And obviously these contracts are agreed before we come into the physical world, and the lessons that we choose to learn while we're here. But do we need to become aware of what our soul contract is during our human experience? Personally, now through everything that we spoke about currently, I'm having a different realization of, do you know what? Because for me, I have a constant panic against time. I feel like that I need to find what my purpose is. And I think find is the key word that I need to throw away. Yeah, I feel like a rush against time for me. I don't know if anyone else feels that or has experienced that or has overcome that, What are your thoughts on soul contracts, and especially relating into purpose? Christo, was that your hand? Did you want to share?
Yeah, I actually wanted to just come in on what you just said about words and time. They come from the same hemisphere. This is the left hemisphere. It's the hemisphere for creating for constructing and creating structural or confabulated realities, so that we can structurally understand things or make sense of them in some confabulated fashion. So maybe even just letting go of all words, not just find, but all words, because all words sometimes can imply so many different things. Like you say find, but then you imply hidden. you say purpose, but then you imply the opposite of purpose or whatever. Like, you know, so it's almost like implying that that you're lacking something. But when we stop speaking and we just allow, again, coming back to the elephant, it shows up basically. It's no longer hidden. But with regards to soul contracts or soul urge or whatever, again, I mean, we can come back to what Livia was sharing about her son and her father and how there's all these other dimensions, and or even coming back to what JP said about what the Maasai do in terms of speaking to the child and figuring out what they sent her to do. And I suppose there is some sort of path or a purpose that we're coming here, or our soul is here for. And I know that, at least for me in my near-death experience, that was what was communicated to me, not in any left brain lexical language, just a sort of a knowing. But it seems that it is sort of encompassed under that service / experience. But just got to allow it to show up. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying about words. I think for me, when I'm thinking about purpose, I'm thinking about what am I here to do, I suppose, in terms of what is resonating in the alignment of my spirit. And that's where I often feel lost, because I often have a feeling that, and maybe it's a wrong feeling, but I often do have a feeling that I'm not living in alignment with my spirit. And does that relate to purpose, you know, like that kind of thing. And then I often think, but I'm here. So there's obviously a reason why I'm here. So I'm obviously meant to gain experience from this moment or from this time in my life that doesn't resonate with me. I'm obviously meant to be learning something from it. So I don't know, for me, I oscillate so often between the two of like flowing and then panicking, flowing and panicking. And yeah, that's just my experience. But yeah,
I want to say something here real quick.
Yes.
My thoughts here on the soul contract. We all know what the contract is. It's these physical bodies. These physical bodies are the contract that our soul has taken. That was my input on that. That was the first thought that came into my head. This physical body is the contract. Now we're fulfilling that contract by being in this body. And then the contract is done when we leave the body. We serve whatever purpose we're meant to serve with that contract, this body, when we're done.
So the higher purpose, you're saying, is basically just to be here, just to have the human experience. Yes. Is the purpose.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yasmin or JP? So you go on mute.
Yeah, sorry, but maybe because I need to jump. I have a work thing on the other side. They're gonna.
I didn't realize the time.
No, it's okay. I'll just share something quickly. I think, yeah, so I agree with, you know, like, especially, you know, what Livia has just said, you know, with the body being the contract. And it's interesting, even the word contract, you know, like it's that, you know. But I think, and then you spoke about time. So I think purpose, you know, like, and you feel that you're running out of time. But I think if we think of the purpose as we are here in a way to remember that we are source, to remember that we are love, to remember that we need to go back to where we came from. So and possibly to ascend, you know, like to go higher. So I think you will never run out of time, because you are what you already are. And when it gets closer to the time, perhaps, of you leaving this soul contract or the physical that Livia has explained, something will happen where it will force you automatically to accept death and to remember, so you can actually go back to, so you can actually remember that you are what you are already seeking. And I think for me, you know, like, I guess maybe in a very simple way, I think this is how to explain how we can just relax, you know, like, and we can you just go with the flow, because at the end of the day, we will get home. At the end of the day, you know, we are going to make it home, you know, and because this is where we've come from, and this is where we are going. So, and yeah, we just need to be kind, to open our hearts and help each other.
Thank you, JP.
Yeah.
Yasmin?
If
JP,
it's
you need
okay,
to jump
sorry,
off.
I'm gonna, yeah. It was lovely. It was so, I love, it was brilliant, this conversation.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much
I
for
gotta go
connecting.
as well, guys. Thank you so much, Alexandra, again.
Thank you,
Good to meet
guys.
you, Yasmin. Leave it great to see you again.
Nice to meet you all.
And then
Yeah, it was good to see you guys.
See you next week.
See you next week, guys. Thank you so much for jumping on.
See you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yasmin, did you want to share anything? It's nearly finished.
Yeah. Zoom always confuses me with what's visible on the screen and what's not. So okay, I can't see myself. Yeah, I was gonna, actually it was a question that I had wanted to ask earlier, but I guess we can reflect on it. Do you feel like you've ever been lucid before, ever been awakened before as your consciousness? Because, well, yeah, I guess I'll just, it's a weird experience for me because I've been thinking about it and realizing that, is this the first time that I've ever realized that I'm here? Because it almost feels that way, unless there's another layer of amnesia still in terms of, well, you can remember past lives and things like that, but I feel for me, this is a really unique experience in that I've never realized these things in this way. So this is its own unique level, and I wouldn't have felt that way before. And so that comes with the evolution of the soul. And in terms of contracts, it's like it's all predetermined already as what it connects to our body, what it's going to bring to us, whether that's the families we've been in or who we're going to attract. But also, you always know when the contract is finished. It's kind of like you feel this incredible alchemy or energy towards something, and then it teaches you a particular lesson, then all of a sudden the spark's gone, or they just move on or leave. So yeah, I think there's some things that definitely are there for a reason. Like they come in, they teach us something, or maybe they're longer term. And some longer terms are kind of more connected to deeper levels of ourselves. So the more we reach into authenticity, that you can't really shake that stuff because you're not going to shake yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to say that basically there's an expression of everything that's within us and what we've come carrying outside of us. So any of the things that we're struggling with, like we're going to see them reflected outside of us. Everything's a map of each other, as above, so below. So yeah, the idea that we have to run after our purpose or try to figure something out is some of the levels of suffering that I've definitely been stuck in before. Mm-hmm. But it always reaches this level of absurdity where it's just like, it's right in front of you. And if you can't see it, you don't need to see it yet.
That's a good point. I like that. If it's not there, if you're not seeing it, you don't need to see it yet. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you meet certain people too. It's like, okay, say I had met you, Alex, or you, Yasmin, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and you were speaking what you're speaking now, I'd probably be like, that's kind of weird. But since people come into your life at specific points for reasons, it's like when I lived in Montana, we met a massage therapist, but he also does a lot of energy work, and he never told anybody about that, but he just kind of opened up to us about it. And that's kind of what really got me into looking into the energy work and healing with energy as well, like using intention and manifestation and stuff like that. And then we met another guy, and it's like they all kind of fell into place when it was like it was supposed to happen that way. Meet people at these specific times, they tell you things, give you information, then you take that information, look into it, make your own judgment of that, and then share that. That seems like what the true purpose is to share information and to learn, to know.
Yeah.
not really to find. Like, that is the purpose.
I like that to know. Yeah, it's so true.
It brings
So-
us back to the body.
Say that again.
It brings us back to the body. Your body knows. That's your
Yeah.
subconscious. That has all the information. So we can intellectually, you know, feel into it and all of that, but on a body level, once you know, you know. That's it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to forget it. It's like muscle memory. So
Yep.
It's like what Krista was saying, I suppose, as well, like it coming from like the left side,
Yeah.
or the ego, or
Yeah.
the human side. I suppose that's where like my panic comes from, of like
Yeah.
wanting to be living in my purpose, but I already am living in my purpose, you know. And it's just that left side, or that ego, telling me that you're not in alignment, or you're not doing what you should be doing, or you're not doing what you came here to do, or
It's like it's like what we were talking about last week with the ego. It has to be balanced. You can't have imbalance.
yeah. And this is what I mean when I oscillate.
yeah.
Often.
Duality. Well, let's talk about false overlays here for a second, because you can have a false body. A false body is made up of false associations, false contracts, false ideas. And as long as that is still alive, it's still manifesting and seeing from that lens. So we were talking about death earlier, and it really is that. And it's not just death of the ego, it's all of these identifications. So that needs to crack open. And until it does, we just feel not connected or aligned to our purpose. It's there, but you can't figure out how to deal with it. And that's how strong the programming is. It's like, it's maddening. You know you want to do this thing, but you watch yourself self-sabotage over and over and over again until you crack into the actual programming.
You know, that's something I never even thought about or even remember. You have to remind yourself these days that I've been heavily programmed. We all have been heavily programmed. We've been indoctrinated for so many years. There's a level of indoctrination in us, you know, that I suppose it's there and we forget about it. Like it's there. It's been put in us so that we don't notice it, I suppose.
They do it to you when you're really, really young, so that it's hard to remember what it was like before any indoctrination was ever there.
Yeah. It's
like a hypnosis. It's a hypnosis, and I've noticed that we just have delusive tendencies all around, where you just are convincing yourself over and over again that no, this is reality, or this is fine, this is how I actually feel. And layer after layer with these awakenings, we keep just falling back to our knees, being like, oh my God, I don't know anything, or how did I miss that? How did I convince myself of that? But it's these tendencies and programs, and like you said, they have a vested interest in remaining hidden. That's how they function.
I think we should definitely do a session on indoctrination and programming.
Yeah,
and actually,
definitely.
Yeah, we should do one about like how to reverse this, which Yasmin, I know that you have like a lot of knowledge around as well.
Yeah,
I know that we're all trying to do that for ourselves, you know. We're all trying to reverse that programming. It's so hard because you're basically trying to reverse something that you don't know is even there sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say EFT, for example, like emotional freedom technique, is one of the ways that it's like going to bring up the emotions or the associations. Because sometimes you can't just think your way out of it. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So coming back to purpose, I know I wrote this right before, so it's one of the last slides. So how do we find our purpose? I really want to like reword that now and say kind of like, well, how do we realize our purpose, or how do we like recognize it? Yeah. So follow the energy trail. This is one thing that usually works for me. So your soul's voice is always linked to positive energy. Start noticing what brings joy in your everyday life. And this is something that actually someone said to me, you know, like notice what emotions you're feeling during which act, or during what moment brings up, and that's kind of like how you follow it. And ask questions. Going deeper and asking questions like why, how, and where allows you to question negative or limiting beliefs. And lastly, one of my favorites, because this happens to me a lot and I notice it a lot, is synchronicities. So synchronicity leaves clues, and synchronistic events are clues from the universe that you're on the right track. And I like to use that one, really. They come up a lot for me. Does anyone, do you guys want to share on anything, or do you have any good synchronistic stories you want to share?
Not that I can really think of, but I know exactly what you're saying because things have happened and synchronicity and stuff like that I've noticed.
Yeah. That's like, it's just all connected. Like, I used to struggle so hard with the message that I received about my mission because I was just like, what on earth? What are the steps? How do I do this? And it didn't make sense for years and years. And then oddly, it all just started happening by itself. I would find myself mindlessly having created a certain group or done a certain thing, and it lays dormant for 2 years. And then down the line, all of a sudden someone says something, I meet someone, I look at it differently, I'm like, oh my God, this has been it the entire time. And so we don't always see it in that moment, but everything is connected in a very eerie way.
Yes, it still blows your mind, doesn't it? Like when it happens, it's just, and yet I know the things that I know, and when it happens, it still is like, oh my God, this is so mad.
Yeah. No, but then you wonder, like, why was I worried? That was myself. I was like, I clearly have wasted years just being angry at myself for nothing because it was all connected anyway. It just wasn't the time for that stuff to be revealed.
I suppose that is part of the lesson though, isn't it? That is part of the lesson of trusting the process. But yeah, so that's the end of the slides for today. But listen, if you guys ever want to like take to the floor, like just let me know if you have any topics you want to discuss, or even if you want to hold space during these discussions as well. Yeah. You are more than welcome. And
I think talking about indoctrination would be a really good one because I've witnessed firsthand my own dad having to basically stop, put it in full reverse, watch him have breakdowns in my backyard to where he was crying and didn't know what to do with his life. And I was the one out there helping him. Like, part of that purpose is to help. Like when he was reversing out of that indoctrination slowly, and then it was like all of a sudden free fall out of it, and it's just like, I'll help you.
So you must have quite a bit of experience with that as well then, or maybe knowledge, or do you try to implement the things that he did?
I try to pretty much follow what he said from his experience. Basically, don't get indoctrinated is if you can, try not to. Like, I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
But I'm now with my kid, I really gotta watch with what he watches and who he talks to and how people talk to him and what people say. And it's like, so far, I mean, he's a normal little kid who's not had a religion shoved onto him, or you have to do this and there's no other way. Express yourself, basically. Just be mindful of others, don't hurt others, that kind of thing.
Yeah. These discussions actually light me up so much. I always feel really expanded. Yeah. I feel like really mentally stimulated after these discussions. But thank you so much for jumping on and taking the time to share your experiences and share your wisdom as well.